And we're going. We're live. How you doing today, Shane?
I'm good.
I see you got yourself a Tim Hortons. You're a savage. You're drinking coffee in the evening.
I normally don't. Normally I'm in bed by 9 o'clock.
Wow.
It's like a security blanket for me.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
I mean, like it just like anytime I go to a doctor's appointment, anywhere I go, I feel like I just have to have a cup of coffee with me.
I get that. Yeah. I get that. I understand that because whenever I do a podcast, I feel like I have to have a coffee too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It gives you like a sense of energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel better.
Thank God it's Saturday. I have to get up for work.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. Are you from the Lansing area?
So yes, I grew up in Williamston.
Wow.
I've been around the local area for most of my life, minus a few years I was up in Gaylord, and a few years I was living north of Detroit, over by the military base.
Okay.
But been around here most of my life. I grew up with 22 siblings.
22.
22.
Yeah.
My parents had 7 boys, and then they adopted 16.
Holy cow!
We were like the UN of Williamston, and everybody, and this is going back, 30 plus years. It was a much smaller town then, and so everybody, of course, knew exactly who we were because they, I have siblings from South Korea, India, Haiti, all over the United States.
Wow.
It was definitely a mix.
What are family functions like?
They are mostly non-existent.
Yeah.
Because it's sort of, it just becomes impossible to get that many people together. And we try to do like a Christmas thing every year, but, we might get a handful of people. And honestly, even a handful of people with, some cousins and stuff thrown in the mix. I mean, you're up to 50 people in no time with it seemingly hardly anybody. So, but it wasn't boring, and it certainly still isn't. But the flip side of that, and as I've experienced more recently than not, is when you have that many siblings, it's that many more people that you're going to lose throughout your life, which didn't necessarily occur to me growing up until I started losing siblings. And now I've lost 5 siblings, and,
wow.
That's more than most people ever even have.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been interesting.
So are you one of the adopted siblings?
No, I am I'm the youngest of the biological brothers, and I also have a twin brother.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That is so wild. So did your parents adopt through the foster care system? Did they?
Nope, they never fostered.
Really?
They just straight up did adoption.
What made them want to adopt so many kids? Just had a passion? You guys have a farm?
Craziness? I don't know. I'm sure there was, a lot of motivating factors behind it. And I don't, I've certainly never regretted it. I mean, I think it lended to having a very interesting upbringing, and a more like a better cultural understanding.
Yeah, it's a little bit more diverse.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
completely diverse.
Yeah.
I mean, we had it all. So
Yeah.
it was interesting.
Yeah, you definitely can't be called racist when you have
Yeah.
siblings from
Yeah.
all over the world, right?
Yeah.
It teaches you to appreciate different cultures too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. When my siblings came from South Korea, they didn't know English. They were young and
Wow.
Coming from a completely different culture to here,
Right.
and but you kind of adapt and overcome, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's wild. That is so crazy.
So-
I've never met anybody that's had 22 siblings.
You'd be surprised at how many. There are a lot of other families that do have a lot of kids like that, and when I was growing up, there was these adoption groups that would get together, and I mean, between 5 families, you'd have 187 kids running around, So I grew up in Williamston, been around local most of my life. Joined the military at 28. I kind of went in late. I was kind of busy in my 20s, just enjoying life, you know. But I went in and ended up staying in for 12 years, and then just recently separated in August of 2019.
Wow.
And the hardest part about that was finding a purpose that even comes close to matching your purpose as a member of the military. You know, I mean, it's just it seems next to impossible, right? And that's what sort of brought me to this flag replacement business. Is I just saw a need there, and it was completely unfulfilled.
Wow. Now, you mentioned that it's difficult to find your place after leaving the military. Sorry, that light goes on and off. I apologize. I could imagine that when you're in the military, you have like a brotherhood, essentially, right?
Absolutely.
You're tied to the guys that you're with,
Yep.
and then when you leave that, you no longer have that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'll always have that family over there, but now that I'm separated from it, yeah, those are truly, the people that I would gladly take a bullet for.
Right.
And so, I mean, you're not only working with these people, but you're living with these people on deployments and, spending damn near every waking minute with these people. So it definitely creates some strong bonds there. And it's definitely challenging coming out of that and, finding your place anywhere after that.
Yeah, absolutely. This episode is brought to you by Red Bike Delivery. This delivery service operates only using battery-powered, eco-friendly transportation. Red Bike Delivery is there for all your delivery needs, whether it's dinner for the family, flowers for your partner, or new houseplants for your new collection. Red Bike Delivery will gladly deliver those and everything in between. So what are you waiting for? Check out Red Bike Delivery on Facebook or Instagram for more information. Red Bike Delivery, because there's only one Earth. So how did you find your place after that?
Trial and error. When I got out, I, was kind of just job hopping and, went back to school for about 5 minutes, and I was ended up working a bunch of marijuana jobs, doing like security and marijuana transportation and stuff. And it was just never anything more than a job. And so there was really just no fulfillment there, especially coming from the military. So I was doing a job delivering flowers for a local florist, and driving around one day, and I just, started. I always notice flags. It's just kind of my thing, and I just started noticing how many flags are out there that are torn and tattered and just shredded and just need to be replaced.
Yeah.
And the more I would see these flags, and the more I thought about it, there's just nobody that offers that service. And my thoughts were, with elderly people in the community, and just or handicapped people that can't just go out there and swap out their flag.
Right.
It's more of a challenge, but they want it there. So, it just kind of fills that void. So
explain to me what you do.
So when people put out American flags,
Yeah.
As most people know, that when the flag becomes torn and tattered beyond repair, essentially, it needs to be retired and replaced. And it's that simple. That's what I do, is just offer a service, replacing people's American flags. And then with that, retiring their old flags properly.
Now, when you retire a flag, what does that consist of?
That consists of burning the flags, and it's just done in a ceremonious way.
Okay.
And part of my drive or passion behind the flags is a good portion of my military career was spent doing honor guard, and I did 10 years of honor guard doing military funerals and base functions, ceremonies and stuff. But the passion was really with the funerals and wanting to, make sure that every single funeral that you do is done well, is done correctly, is executed properly. And obviously the American flag is a big part of that.
Right.
So I've just always sort of had this passion leaning that way. And one of the things, the only thing I collect is flags that have been flown in various places or on various aircraft and stuff like that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That is so cool. Do you have them hanging around your house?
I just recently moved, so I don't.
Okay.
They're lacking a spot right now. I did have them up, and I'm up to about a dozen flags from just the flying on bombers and over in the Middle East they would run these flag programs to make some money, for the squadron, and they take donations. Right. And they'd fly your flag for you and give you a cool certificate with it. And I always thought that was pretty cool.
That is cool. Is there a huge need, like in the Lansing area, to swap out people's flags? And
I would certainly argue yes, based on when I drive around and
hold on.
Sure,
go ahead, keep talking.
When I drive around and see all the tattered flags that I see, I think there's a huge need for it. And as I posted on Facebook just recently that I would rather recommend someone to a competitor that, I don't really have any competitors.
I was going to ask that.
But if I did, I would gladly send someone their way to replace their flag. I would rather have them replace their flag than I don't care about the money. I'm not, this isn't a full-time thing for me. And the idea is just to sort of allow it to hopefully organically grow on a local capacity.
Right.
Because I'm one guy. I can really, I can serve the greater Lansing area, and that's about it.
Right.
But I don't think I need any more than that. There's no shortage of flags around the greater Lansing area.
Right.
And one of the really cool things to me is the flags that I get are manufactured at the Ionia prison.
Oh wow!
I think
slave labor.
Well, I don't know how it works, but I think it's awesome that they make them there. I think it's awesome that I'm able to source them locally.
Absolutely.
I think it's great.
What is the process of making a flag? What is that like? Do you have to sew it with like a sewing machine?
Well, yeah. I'm sure they have some pretty industrial equipment.
Yeah.
One of the big differences is the difference between an embroidered flag and a printed flag, and generally the printed flags are, for lack of a better term, junky.
Yeah.
Where if you can get a good quality embroidered flag, it's just going to last longer.
Right. Now, when do you know that you need to replace a flag? When it starts tearing?
Yeah, it's sort of personal discretion. I think when
would you replace it?
I would replace it probably at the first sign of a fray. But I understand people aren't going to do that. And I don't expect them to. I get it. Flags get worn out, and there's a lot of variables there with weather conditions and what time of year and all those things.
Right.
A flag may last, 9 months at one person's house and 3 months at another.
Right.
So, yeah, I think I think it's an awesome deal.
One thing I find really interesting about America is that we're one of the only countries that flies our flag outside of like almost every business, every government building. Like people have them on their houses.
Yeah.
Like there's a huge sense of pride when it comes to America and being American.
Yeah, yeah.
And that I was actually talking to this lady. She's a Fox 47 reporter, and she's from Germany. And she was like, "That's one thing I really love about America is how she didn't say patriotic, but I think that's what she meant.
Yeah.
Is how patriotic we are and how much pride we take in our country."
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah,
And having traveled all over the world, you're absolutely right. You don't see flags flown to the extent,
right.
You might see in various countries flags flown in front of government buildings and stuff, but definitely not on the scale that you see in the United States.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when did you start your business?
I just started it this last November, the week of Veterans Day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I started it, and
That's a good time to start.
it was, and it was, I kind of had the gears in motion, and Veterans Day was coming up quick, and I wanted to get on the local news on Veterans Day. So I incorporated that Monday and got on the news by Wednesday.
Wow.
And which, it was, I think, just, pure luck there, but it was awesome though. It was really great of them to highlight that story for me. I mean, it was a full 2 minutes, which, anyone knows on local news, that's a long time.
That is a long time.
So it was really cool of them to do that and just get the word out there. And, like I said, I'm in no hurry to be selling 100 flags a day,
Yeah.
but there certainly is a big need for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've seen some tattered flags. I don't pay that much attention though to it, like I'm sure you do, but
and I get it. It's some you see that are tattered, and even if they get into kind of bad condition, I get it. It's not one of those things that you get to the grocery store and you think, oh geez, I need an American flag.
Right.
You just don't think about it.
yeah.
But on the flip side of that, when I see flags that are shredded to almost nothing, that's when it's a bit perturbing. I guess. I think why do you even have it out there?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
There comes a point where you should really replace it.
Yeah, absolutely. Is it almost like offensive in a sense?
To me it is.
Yeah.
And I can't, I guess I can't speak for all veterans, but I'm sure I'm not the only one.
Yeah. What do you think? Like, what would you think if you seen somebody who had a tattered flag hanging, it was just ripped and flying? Do you think it's just like disrespectful?
No,
or just a lack of care?
I don't think it's disrespectful or even a lack of care if it's torn or tattered or it maybe gets to a point where it needs to be replaced. And like I said, where when I've seen flags where 3/4 of the flag was missing. Well, that that's way beyond torn and tattered.
Yeah.
I get it. People don't, like I said, people don't walk out of their house and stand with their flag every day.
Yeah.
So I get it, and I'm not here to judge.
Right.
I'm just here.
That's just your job.
I just want to, I just want to properly retire that flag and just replace it. That's it.
Yeah. Awesome. That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
And you said you don't really have any competition with us.
No. And there are, I know of one local company that does flag poles.
Okay.
And so in addition to they will come out and replace your flag, but they're not, it's not their thing. They're not out with marketing flag replacement service.
Right.
So yeah, it's essentially there's no one else doing it.
What kind of success have you seen since you started?
So far, not a ton. And what I've found is that unless I'm out going door to door, there's not a lot being generated from social media, for example.
Right.
But it's new enough also that I think just taking the time to grow and just getting the word out there, and taking advantage of like we have Memorial Day coming up.
Right. Yeah.
That's a time when a lot of people put their flags out, and so it'd be great to just continually build that up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And coming on to like a podcast and getting covered by the news.
Yeah.
I should put you in contact with my friend reporter.
Which one?
Louisa. She was on the podcast.
Oh, okay.
And she's like, anytime you get somebody who has a interesting, cool thing that they want to promote, send them my way.
I think it's awesome. I think it's unique and most importantly, like I said, it gives me that purpose that I was looking for.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the biggest thing for me. I don't really, I can't afford to give them out for free.
Right.
But I'm not trying to get rich at this either. I truly just want to see people have nice flags flying.
Now, you said that it gives you purpose. Is when you got out of the military, what was your life like? Were you like just kind of struggling? Like, I mean, because like, all right, for instance, I'll give my situation.
Sure.
All right, so I work at GM, and kind of going through the daily routine of going to work every day and like just the same thing over and over and over every single day, it gets tiring. But when you don't have any purpose, any passion, anything that you can kind of put focus energy in outside of work, then you kind of get depressed. And like you're like, what's my purpose? Like I'm just going to this bullshit job that I don't want to go to every day.
Yeah.
And, luckily I started doing podcasts, and I'm pretty passionate about that. And that keeps me beyond busy.
I bet.
So now it's like, I feel like I have a purpose.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But like, what was life like for you? Were you kind of getting depressed?
I mean, I don't even know where to start with that one. It was rough because I didn't choose to get out of the military. I got medically discharged, and so it was a really long, arduous process of getting out. It's not like you just get out,
Right.
It was like 2.5 years of getting out. So, and then one of the sort of dagger to the heart to me was, in that process, before I was 100% for sure out, I was getting ready to go to Afghanistan. I mean, my bags were ready. All my gear was ready to go, and at the last minute, man, they took me off, and that was devastating to me, I mean, because that was my purpose.
Right.
And I think, part of that has to do with, the job itself. And, I don't know it, other people with other military jobs, I can't speak for their jobs. I don't know what kind of purpose they found in that. But for me, as a crew chief, I was a crew chief on the KC-135 area fueling tanker, excuse me, which are flown out of Selfridge. And the number one mission of that airplane is nuclear warfare. That's it. Now, we did a million different things all the time. We would transport medical patients, troop transports, all kinds of stuff. But our number one thing was nuclear war, and that's what we trained for. And so you're leaving that purpose and trying to replace that. And right. So when I first got out, like I said, I was working a marijuana security job, and due to, I tell you what, let me back up for a second. So the beginning of the end was in the Middle East, in Qatar on a deployment, and I went into the clinic for chest pain because I'm getting older, and a couple months before that, my mom had a heart attack, and my brother had a heart attack.
Wow.
And with a month apart. So this is only, a couple months later. So I start freaking out, and I'm like, oh shit. And this is going on intermittently for a couple days. And I think, man, I should probably go get this checked out. Well, little did I know, when I walked into that clinic, I was never coming back out of that clinic. I mean, they wouldn't even let me go get my stuff. I had to have, luckily my nephew was deployed there at the same time. So I was able to call him and say, hey man, I need you to go get all my stuff.
Oh my gosh.
So while I was in that clinic, they had given me a sublingual, and essentially I died. And I came back and the nurse was sweating bullets, and she's like, oh my God, she's like, you were dead. And they had me hooked up to everything. And so, it was just like this crazy thing. And so they immediately flew me out of there to Germany, to the hospital, where they did a whole workup and did the heart cath and all this stuff. And so I was there for a few days, and then went from there to a hospital in DC. And the funny and maybe not so funny part about this is 3 hospitals later, the chest pain was just pneumonia. And it just happened to be that was the only symptom I had. But in the interim, with all this going on, they had diagnosed, some coronary artery disease and some various things. And then through that process, I don't know, momentary hypoxia, whatever the case may be, I developed a severe neck twitch. It just, through that process, I don't know the exact day, but once I got back to the States and got back to my base, I had this just wicked head twitch. And what later was diagnosed as dystonia, which is a movement disorder, sort of like Tourette's. And they sort of added that to it. So it was like dystonia and Tourette's, which wouldn't be so terrible, but it caused severe chronic pain. I mean severe chronic pain.
It probably like tenses everything up.
Oh man. Yes.
Yeah.
And so, I was in severe pain for, probably 2.5 years.
Wow.
Before, they were trying different things, and nothing ever worked. Where now we finally have gotten to a point where I do Botox treatment every 3 months, and thank God, because that has made a world of difference.
Wow.
A world of difference. But even with the Botox treatment, if I get into situations that are stressful or excitable, whether it's good or bad, it sets me off. I found out last year that I cannot go to Vegas. I cannot hang out on the strip in Vegas, man. My head was about to just come off my shoulders. But the problem is it hurts, you know what I mean? It starts hurting. And so thank God for Botox. Man, so there's been so between that and just, when the pandemic hit, January, I decided, hey, you know what? I'll go back to school. The VA pays for it.
Yeah.
I'll go back to school. Then the pandemic hit, and I'm 46 years old. I'm not an online school kind of guy.
Right.
I didn't even graduate high school. I'll
How'd you join the military?
Back then, you could get in with a GED.
Oh, okay.
And it's so my understanding is that you can't do that anymore. But back then you could. And so I went and got the GED immediately after dropping out. But so I went back to school, the pandemic hit, and that was the end of that. And in that process, right after the pandemic hit, I lost 2 siblings, 2 brothers, one brother 4 days after my other brother's funeral.
Oh my
gosh.
And
it was just back to back. So that year was, rough to say the least. In the sense of mental health, just going through all that, and also not having any purpose, also just not knowing what your life even is anymore.
Yeah.
I tried to sort of find a little bit of purpose in doing funerals of the local VFW. And that was incredibly short-lived. They do things a little differently.
Okay. How so?
So they would take a folded flag, and just hand it to the family. And there are two things that are just an absolute at a military funeral. Two things: flag fold and taps. That's it. And if someone maybe is afforded the rifles, that's great, but most are not.
Yeah.
So the two requirements are flag fold and taps. And I refused. I said, I'm not, there's no way I'm going to hand off an unfolded flag or a flag that wasn't personally folded by us in front of the family. Wow. I'm just not going to do it.
Why wouldn't they do that?
I don't know. I could never figure it out.
Wow.
And I kind of, I didn't want to figure it out. I just thought, you know what?
That's kind of a depressing thing to find purpose in, though, right?
Well, it is. And
I get it, though.
Maybe I'm the outlier, but when I first joined the military, I joined the Air Force Reserves.
Okay.
And then within 3 years of that, the Air Force Reserve got moved from Michigan to Florida.
Oh, wow.
So I got out because it was a mess. And so I was new, so I'm glad I got out at that time. But the driving factor for me to go back in was to do honor guard, was to do military funerals.
Wow.
And I don't know that I can explain why, but it's just something I feel very passionately about, and just being able to do it correctly, doing it right.
Yeah, there's like a sense of pride with it.
Absolutely.
Too. Yeah, because that's the last time that individual is going to be able to, not look at their family member that's lost, but that's their last memory that they're going to have of that loved one.
Yeah, and
you're in control of that, their experience of it.
Yeah, and I think most people remember that.
Yeah.
Most people remember when they go to a military funeral, they remember that. They remember the rifles and taps and it was.
There's a reason why it's always in movies, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like such a honorable thing.
Yeah, I did. I took part in John Dingell's funeral.
Wow.
That was interesting.
That was John. Who was John Dingell?
So he was the longest serving U.S. representative, I believe. He was in office for, my God, like 50 some years.
Jesus.
He was old, and he was a World War II veteran.
Oh, okay.
And so, his funeral was a pretty big to do.
Wow.
But I also did a funeral. Alfred Taubman. He
was he the guy that was lost in war?
No. He invented shopping malls.
Oh.
And he at one point owned like Sotheby's auction house. This guy was worth over $2 billion.
Jeez.
But when we went and did his funeral, guess what he gets? A flagfold and taps. You know what I mean? Because we don't. He's no different to us than anybody else. And that was also doing honor guard and doing military funerals. We didn't wear name tags on our uniforms because it doesn't matter who I am.
Mm.
Who I am makes no difference to this. I have a job to do, and that's it. But that being said, it was, there were times where, it was really, really difficult. You have someone, maybe younger that passed, and the family's just losing it.
Yeah.
And you're standing there holding the flag, trying to keep your shit together.
Yeah.
So, and just doing, friends' funerals, people
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah.
I can imagine that.
Yeah. But I took pride in knowing that, I'm doing it, and I'm doing it absolutely correctly.
Right. Right. Wow. Yep. That's some crazy experience.
It is.
You've had some crazy experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah. You grew up with so many different siblings. You grew up here in Williamston, and then you went into the military, went overseas. You had different experiences over there. Was your experience overseas overall good? Would you say?
My experience overseas overall was awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't trade it for the world. And because aside from, the Middle East deployment, we went everywhere. We went all over the place all the time. I mean, I've been all over Europe and
wow.
Southeast Asia, spent a lot of time in Guam, Hawaii, all over the States. It was awesome. I mean, because most of the time as a crew chief, I'm just working the flight and making sure the plane keeps flying and, has what it needs. So when we would be transporting people or whatever we were doing, as soon as we take off, our planes had bunks in the back. There was like 4 bunks in the back that would fold down, and those were beds for the crew chiefs.
Wow.
And that was awesome.
I bet.
That was so awesome. Because you'd have an airplane packed full of people, and I have a bed.
That's awesome.
Oh, man. Yeah.
That's so cool.
I enjoyed that. And it's the government, so there's good and bad with everything. But
yeah,
I still tell young people, you absolutely go in the military. You don't meet too many people that come out and they go, man, I sure regret that.
Right.
You don't,
Right.
I mean, it's a great experience, and there's a lot to learn there,
It's a great experience. I've never been in the military, but I mean, everybody I know that's been in the military, they talk about it with this high, like it was the highlight of their life because they'd gone overseas, they'd experienced so many different things, met so many different people, and then they got out and then went to college, and the military paid for it, and they have all these other experiences because of the military. It then kind of sets you up for the rest of your life. I mean, however, there is a lot of bad about it, like if you go to war and then you come back and you're suffering PTSD and all that stuff, obviously they're working on that, but
and I mean, it's not without its issues. And, I mean, I came out with all kinds of issues, but, I wouldn't trade it for the world. You know what I mean? And I think for most people, the people that you talk to, it's that purpose.
Yeah.
It's that purpose-driven life that, you have this ultimate purpose.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
you're saving democracy.
Yeah.
Essentially.
And I mean, there's just a lot of it's a lot of experience in a short period of time.
Yeah.
So I recently started working at MSU doing landscaping, and essentially, I mean, I just cut grass all day.
Nice.
And it is nice.
I used to do that. I loved it.
I love it because it's boring, and that's what I want. And I don't need to have a big purpose in that, because I have, because I started this flag thing, and that has sort of given me that purpose.
Yeah.
It allows me to sort of go to this job and zone out and not worry about it.
Yeah.
And then also, I'm also a local drummer. I've been playing the drums for many years, and so I've played with bands locally.
I've seen that. You said you played for 30 plus years.
Yeah.
How did that start?
Middle school.
Wow.
Just
band?
Yeah.
Wow. And then you just kept
started
doing
playing the snare drum and moved to a drum set, and it was just one of those things that I just loved doing. And so, all through my 20s, I played in bands and did the original stuff and
cool.
Cover bands and all that stuff. And then when I was in the service, I really couldn't do that, because I was just gone all the time. And so I really missed that part of it. But I also got to experience going and sitting in with bands in Thailand, in Guam, all these places, that I just talked my way into sitting in with them. So that was cool, that was a blast.
That is cool. That is really cool. So do you play in a band right now?
No. Right now I'm just kind of just doing little things here and there. I'm playing the Bath Car Show on Cinco de Mayo this Thursday with Fragment of Soul, which is a blues band. And these are guys I used to play with before I went in the service.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that should be fun. I've mostly, over the years, I've been a blues guy.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah.
And I love it. And there's some great players around town.
Yeah.
And it's awesome getting to play with people.
It also kind of gives you purpose too, a little bit, right?
Yeah,
being
sure.
a part of like something bigger,
Yeah.
and putting on a performance and entertaining other people.
And I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
You know?
I always love drummers. Drummers, like whenever I go to a concert or something, I watch the drummer because they're so into it. Like those guys don't get enough credit at all.
Yeah. I just recently went and saw a Tool in concert.
Oh, cool.
And it was awesome. And, you know, for me, I just sit there for 2 hours straight watching Danny Carey play the drums because it's just ridiculous, you know?
Yeah.
I'm like, man, it's a workout.
Yeah.
It's a workout.
Yeah, absolutely. We went to, my wife and I went to Kid Rock and Bon Jovi concert just recently. And each time I watch, especially with Bon Jovi, he's older, and his voice kind of sucks now. And so I just locked in on the drummer because that guy, man, he's old too.
Yeah.
But he's getting after it, and I'm like, damn, that guy's killing it. He's sweating, sweat's flying everywhere.
Yeah, and you know, and I love seeing a lot of these, you know, local bands, and there's a lot of great talent around here.
Yeah.
And I love, you know, I've seen a lot of drummers around here that, you know, I'm always like, man, I hope one day I'll be that good. I don't know. Maybe another 30 years.
Yeah, there's a lot of underrated artists here locally, you know, in our community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I've seen some good stuff.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting that Lansing has like such a like vast variety of different like artists and different types of artists. It's crazy.
I love that. You know, the Rio town is sort of building up now, and you know, I love seeing more of the arts around Lansing. You know, just more artistry in general.
Yeah.
And I think it's getting there. You know what I mean? I think Lansing is sort of finding its place in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. It used to be this place where just, I don't know, it was kind of dark and dingy. Like you didn't want to go there.
Yeah.
Definitely didn't want to go to Rio Town.
Yeah.
But now, like my wife and I drove through there a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, man, this seems like somewhere like you would want to get out and walk around.
It's awesome.
Like before, a couple of years ago, you wouldn't think about doing that.
Yep. And I, you know, same with Old Town. I mean, I remember Old Town from, almost 30 years ago. And I mean, it was way different than it is now. And now it's awesome. You know? So it's nice to see, you know, just so much local progress and stuff. And it, you know, it just makes me want to be a part of that, a part of my community, and just a part of, you know, kind of what's going on. And
well, and that kind of brings you back to the flag thing. By doing that, you become a part of the community. Yeah, I mean, you are like you're a part of that community.
Yeah, and I like that, you know. Yeah. And I like that. And this is why I don't push too much online, because it's a local thing. You know, I'm not going to be driving to Detroit to replace a flag, probably. You know, so I mean, my audience, my customer base is the greater Lansing area and nobody else.
Right.
And I'm cool with that. You know, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
You know, there's certainly enough people around our area, you know, to fulfill that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think that oftentimes people don't think Lansing's that big.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you can drive through it within like 5 minutes, but it spans out so far, like the greater Lansing area. I mean, you think of Bath and Williamston and what are some of the other, like Charlotte, Potterville,
I mean that's a pretty wide area.
It's huge. Thousands and thousands of people live here in this area.
Yeah, and I think there's and you know, that's what I love about, you know, someone like you doing this local podcast is there's enough people in this town to support whatever local people are doing.
Yeah,
you know? We have the base of people for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you know, it's just I love seeing more and more people coming back to more local centric thinking, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like the pandemic sort of pushed that. You know, I feel like once the pandemic hit and everyone's life just got turned upside down, I felt like there was more of this like local sort of coming together vibe. And I love that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people realize, like, especially like seeing some of the businesses, the small business. And that was kind of like one of the things for me with the podcast was seeing some of these businesses shut down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have this podcast. Why not like help promote some of these business owners? Because like a lot of these businesses that shut down that I like read on like an article about or something, I'm like, I didn't even know that existed, And that was during the pandemic. Like if I would have known that existed, I probably would have gone and helped support. But yeah, I think the pandemic kind of like it halted everything.
Yeah.
I mean, like for me, I talk about it all the time, but working at GM, it was like fast paced. Everything's fast paced. Like we were working overtime every single day, Saturdays. And just, life just seems so fast paced, at least for me.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic hit and it's like, came to a halting stop. And it's like, wow, this is what life is. Like, that shit doesn't matter at all. Like this is what life is.
Yeah.
And now I can have time to spend with my family. I can, put more energy and time into some of the things I love to do.
Yeah.
And then that's when the podcast came about. But, for other people is starting a business or, doing art or whatever it was.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it was really transformative kind of across the board, when, I mean, a lot of people are still working from home.
Yeah.
Because they figured out that we prefer this. This is way better. And I don't blame them,
Yeah.
So it's been quite the transformation, and, it was good and bad, but I think there's been a lot of good to come from it.
I think a lot of good has come from it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't really know any bad that's come from it other than the pandemic itself.
Yeah. I mean, just, the pandemic itself, but just, for me, the isolation, like for my kids is, I was like, man, that's, for me, not too much of my life changed. And,
right.
I was at a point where I was pretty reclusive anyway. So,
yeah.
But, for all these kids that were going to school and then all of a sudden, man, you're not doing any of that. And then everything's online. You can't go anywhere, can't do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, I feel like it was pretty rough there for a minute
I do have to agree with that. My daughter, she was in kindergarten when it all hit and she was just starting. And then, so, she had to start her first day of school ever online. And it's like, man, no kid should have to do that. And then, throughout the year, she's learning online. So it's kind of putting her behind, and just, I don't know. I feel like that generation of children are going to suffer. You can kind of see it now. Yeah. It's sad, honestly. It's really sad.
It just is what it is, right? I mean, and it's not the first time,
Right.
We've gone through periods where people's lives have been upended and, you kind of get through it, but, there's suffering that goes on.
Yeah.
But, you kind of just try to look at the good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're all alive. Well, some of us are alive.
Yeah.
Some people weren't so fortunate, I guess, But.
And I only knew one person that actually died from COVID. And oddly enough, during that time when the pandemic hit, we lost like, oh my God, it was like 7 or 8 people, like family, friends and stuff. None of it was COVID.
Wow.
It was all completely unrelated. Just weird timing,
Right.
So yeah, it was, and I think one of the biggest things was, people's mental health just taking a hit during that time.
Yeah.
And I know for myself, I was only 6 months out of the military, out of that life.
Wow. And then this is the new norm.
Yeah. And then, so, I'm trying to find some kind of purpose, and then this happens, and man.
I want to ask you a question, but I don't know if I want to ask on the air. I'll ask you later.
Away.
All right. So, you have a heart problem, right?
Sort of, yes.
So with the vaccination, were you concerned about that at all?
No. I mean, and I'll tell you, the reason I wasn't concerned, well, I was concerned about it, sure, like anyone else. But the reason that I got it with really no qualms was, number one, the military has already stabbed so much stuff into me already that, what's another thing, right?
Right.
So and honestly, I mean, I looked at it from that perspective. And then the other big thing was my sister, who just passed a couple weeks ago, had cancer. And so in order for me to go visit her, we had to get vaccinated.
Wow.
So for that reason alone, it wasn't even questionable.
Right.
We were like, we're going to do it. And so we can go visit. So
I have a friend who's in the military. He was in the military. I work with him, and he developed myocarditis while in the military. Or maybe it was, I think it was in the military. But obviously they inject him with all these things, prior. And then he developed myocarditis, and then he was concerned about getting the vaccination because of the heart conditions, and it affects people with heart conditions. So I was just curious to know how you felt about that.
Fortunately for me, my heart diagnosis was it was coronary artery disease, but very, very mild at this point. So nothing overly concerning or anything.
So can you do like vigorous exercise or anything like that?
Yeah. I have no restrictions.
Okay.
And for me, it runs in my family.
Oh, okay.
So I wasn't really concerned that, is this coming from, some shot I got in the military?
Right.
One thing I was concerned about when sort of all this stuff started was, dystonia is sort of similar to Parkinson's in just the constant movements and all that. And during the time that I was processing out and going through all this stuff, I had read that there's a bacteria in the top crust of the sand in the Middle East, in Qatar specifically, that can cause Parkinson's. And I thought, man, what if, right?
Right.
Who knows? And thankfully I found out, it's not Parkinson's, but, so, you never know, I mean, exposure to jet fuel all the time, there's all kinds of things that, who knows,
Yeah.
I'm thankful that the VA, I can't say enough good about the VA. And I understand, people have had their issues with the VA, and I think it's gotten better over the last several years. But they've been tremendous to me.
That's awesome.
They've definitely taken care of me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, especially like some of the older vets, right? They kind of had some bad experiences. But I mean, but it seems that everything is kind of taking a turn for the better in all aspects.
Yeah, and that's certainly one of the things that I'm very thankful, very grateful that, the VA has taken care of me.
Yeah.
Having been essentially medically retired, I get retirement, but, it's certainly not getting rich off that. I mean, I still have to work,
Right. Now, you said you had kids, right?
I do.
How many kids do you have?
I have 3. I have 2 of my own and then a stepdaughter.
Okay.
They are 14, 15, almost 16, and 18, about to graduate high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
You got your hands full.
Yeah.
Wow.
And my 18-year-old is my stepdaughter. Her dad owns Arts.
A pub?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
And her uncle owns Good Truck and Diner in Reotown.
Oh, wow.
And
Jeez.
And they're absolutely great people. And I tell people all the time, I wish more divorced couples could have the relationship that we have. We hang out with these people. I'd take a bullet for that guy.
Nice. That's awesome.
I wish people. I wish more people could experience that.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, there's always animosity there.
Yeah. I wish I could say the same for mine.
Well, that's awesome that you're able to get along.
Yeah. It makes. In fact, he was my first customer.
Oh, really?
He was my very first customer.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to talk about or promote while you're on the podcast?
No, I think we covered it. Like I said, I think it's awesome that you're doing this.
Thank you.
You know, everyone has a story, right? I mean, that's, I feel like everyone has a story that they want to share.
Yeah.
And they want people to hear, and and you just hope that it's a story that people want to listen to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's great to have this outlet and just to be able to give people sort of the background behind, selling flags. So it's not just selling flags.
Yeah. Some vet.
Yeah.
Just some vet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I am a 100% service connected disabled veteran. And that's just life, I guess.
Well, that makes me want to buy a flag from you.
Well, I brought you one for free.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
That's my appreciation gift. I love what you're doing.
Thank you. I really
awesome.
appreciate that. Yeah, that's the reason why I started the podcast. Originally was to share my story. And then I'm like, well, I know other people want to tell their stories.
Yeah.
And so the thing is, like, my wife, her mom, I remember her telling me one day, she's like, I've always wanted to write a book about my life.
Yeah.
She's had some pretty crazy things happen to her. And then that got me thinking, like, if she's not the only person, I'm sure she's not the only person. I'm not the only person. There's got to be so many other people that want to tell their stories.
Sure.
But
absolutely,
not everybody has the time to sit down and write a book.
No,
I know I don't.
No, and I've had even family members. I have an uncle that he's always telling me, man, you should write a book. Says just growing up in that way.
Yeah,
you should really write a book because it's just that. I mean, obviously we could go on, we could be here for hours talking about just all the different experiences that come from just that experience growing up that way.
Right, right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But you definitely should write a book.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot can be learned from somebody who has had 22 siblings, because then it doesn't make, like, you grew up not necessarily I don't want to say priority, but like you had to share with 21 other people.
I don't think my parents ever knew what I was doing. You certainly never got.
You're never favored, right?
And you never got your own bedroom. It was interesting because there's such an age gap there that my youngest sibling thought that my oldest sibling was just a friend of my parents. He had no idea because he had never lived with him.
Wow.
Most of my older siblings were gone. They were moved on out, whatever.
Right.
By the time that they had adopted some of the younger ones, so they didn't know.
Wow, that's so crazy.
And it was interesting experiencing racism from this perspective. Being a white person growing up in a very mixed family. I've been in more than a few situations where people just assume that, well, you're white, so I'm going to start spewing all this racist bullshit because you're probably going to be on board with it,
right?
And so it's certainly interesting to see people's reactions, when you explain to them. But that happened even early on. I remember being 13 years old and walking down the street, and there's these guys in a pickup truck going hunting or whatever they were doing, and they said, "Hey, come here." And I walk over there, and they said, "Hey, what the hell are all them N-words doing down the street?"
Wow.
Well, I'm 13. I don't need. He's talking about my siblings, Wow. And I'm like, I don't even know what to say to that.
Right.
Just kind of keep on keeping on. Yeah. So it's been interesting.
That is interesting. I also was adopted.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'm Honduran, or partial Honduran. My dad's from Honduras. That's my biological dad.
Okay.
But I was adopted into a Caucasian home, so I was like kind of the oddball in the family. I was darker skin, darker hair. Everybody else was white, had blonde hair. So I kind of understand what it would be like for your siblings, kind of being the outcast.
Yeah, and it, like I said, not all of them could even speak English.
Yeah, that's wild.
And it was a very small, very white town.
Yeah, Williamson.
At that time,
Yeah.
I don't, I'm sure it's a little more diverse these days, but
I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah. Well, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was nice talking to you. You're super laid back, really chill.
This is all the weed I smoke now that I'm out of the military.
Does it help you?
No, it doesn't. And I wish it did. I want it to so bad.
Yeah.
But it just really doesn't. I was unfortunately the only thing that really did work was opioids.
Wow.
And a lot of opioids. I mean, I was to a point where I was taking like 80 milligrams of opioids a day just to get by. And I mean, that's horrible. It was horrible. I don't enjoy them at all.
Yeah.
It was horrible. So, and again, thank God for Botox. Like I thank God for Botox.
Awesome.
Well, yeah, I appreciate you having me on. This is great.
Yeah, absolutely. Come back again.
Will do.
Awesome. All right.